direct conversation, some deep reactions, please. All this comics narration ain't late me. A little more talk, a lot less read. A little fight, baby, is what I need. Close the trade, open up your brains. Explain it to me. Explain it to me, baby. Explain it to me.
Thank you, Vandillo, and welcome once again to Rhett Conversations. My name is Josh Wasta, a.k.a. Fallout Fieri. And with me, when everything feels like the movies, yeah, you'd bleed just to know you're alive. It's Leia Cameron.
Hello.
How are you today, Leia?
Oh my goodness. It's a lovely, beautiful day out here in the Chicago suburbs. And I'm really looking forward to more of this really nice weather. That's where I'm at right now. Like very excited about this whole like it's in the 80s thing.
Yeah, I'm making my all-day spaghetti sauce today. Windows are open. It's a good day. And with us for the first time, and somebody that we kind of know tangentially, and glad to have you on your first ever graphically novel presentation, Red Conversations, Tim Hardwick. Tim, welcome.
Hello. And
it is a tradition on our shows that if somebody has not been on an episode before, that they kind of give us their breakdown with comic books. So take it away.
Well, first, let me say that I have listened to some of the other Retcon conversations, and I don't have hard alcohol with me, so I'm not certain that I'll be as good as some of your other guests.
I mean, we're not doing X-Men here. It's just Spidey.
Yeah, true.
So, comics-wise, I started collecting comics, when I was in my teens, and so I have pretty much a full run of X-Men from a little before 93 up. So that's with miniseries and other stuff, that's around 3,000 X-Men. And Amazing Spider-Man, I collected until he decided to make a deal with Mephisto. I kind of...
Which I am familiar with.
There will be some just before one more day shenanigans in this.
And so then I kind of quit, and then I've picked it back up. And for the most part, it's been good. I don't know about Spider-Boy, and I don't know about Superior Spider-Man, but
yeah,
overall, I've been pretty good.
Or Inferno Spider-Man, which is like the
dark web.
Inferno like demon version of Peter Parker. Rec Rap.
Oh yeah, Parker backwards.
Parker spelled backward. Yeah.
What's going on with Spider-Man?
Well, he got tangled with the X-Men on that one, so that's probably their fault.
Oh, that's the problem right there. There you go. That's all you need to say. Is to say, like, show your children, say X-Men. And I'm like, oh, all right. It's not going to make any sense forever now.
I am liking that Mary Jane. Oh, I was going to say, I am liking that Mary Jane Black Cat story line.
Yes. That's where Mary
really
Jane has powers now, and they're chance powers. So she's called Jackpot, and she basically has a slot machine that appears over her head, and whatever combination on the slot machine she hits is what power she gets.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. I like it.
Okay, that's fairly cool. I could dig that.
I also like, every once in a while she's like, well, this power's useless. Yeah. So yeah, Spidey's been through some shit recently.
Apparently. I'll stick with my other spider-related character. Thank you.
Well, there's also Gang Wars, which they just came off of, which was last year's event, where Luke Cage is the mayor of New York. So there's that. That's pretty interesting. Okay. And then, because Kingpin has gone away again, all of the gangs start to fight again. But it just basically becomes New York. It's all your favorite street level heroes dealing with mobs.
Okay, I can dig it.
But that is not what we're doing today. Today, Tim, you came with us with a Spider-Man specific question, and that is, who is Madam Web, or why Madam Web?
Why is Madam Web?
Why is Madam Web? So give us a little bit of how you came to that question, and what exactly you are asking from us.
Okay. So my recollection, and this was 40 years ago, my recollection was that Madam Web was a person in Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, a comic book I didn't get. I just got Amazing. And so now I have gone back and realized that she first appeared in Amazing, not in Peter Parker. But here she is, this sort of older woman. She appears to always be sitting in a throne of webs and is blind.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes no sense to the movie that was supposedly coming out. And nor does the fact that she's protecting 3 women who didn't get created until 90s or 2000s.
Yes.
So she's in the 70s and is protecting women who don't get created until the 90s and 2000s. It just, the plotline of the movie didn't match anything close to the comics. So,
and I will say you are correct. I have watched this movie. I think I said it during the time that we were just kind of checking in before recording, but my wife refused to watch this movie with me, and it is the first time. She watched Morbius twice with me.
Wow.
And she refused to watch this movie.
Wow.
So to answer a little bit before we get into it, the Sony amalgamation has almost nothing to do with Madam Web in the comics. Sony has absolutely no idea what they're doing. They don't want to give up the Spidey name that they paid for in the 90s when Marvel was about to go under.
I was gonna say, yeah, didn't they buy it for like $25 in a fire sale? Like everything must go.
Yes, yeah. At the same time that like Fox bought the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, so all of that, the legal stuff has resolved now, except for in 2 cases. Universal still owns Hulk. That's why you never see a Hulk-led movie. Since the Edward Norton one, they had a similar deal to Spider-Man. And then Spider-Man, the reason that you get that is because, Sony gets a huge kickback on the profits.
But now that they have like shared custody with the MCU with Eric's Spider-Man, all they have left are like the villains and like the D through F list of characters, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they could have made that movie animated because,
yes,
the Spider-Verse movies, both of those have been just amazingly
incredible.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to the live action movies, they're like, well,
I mean,
and Craven got pushed back another year, I guess.
Yeah, that's never gonna help.
Like all 2 people that were really excited about that movie are very upset.
Right, like, yeah. Nobody thinks it's a good idea. Venom has been the only like even close to success that they've had with this, and the second one basically went under the radar for everyone. Although it was a decent movie.
I forgot it existed except for that end credit scene. The end credit scene was the only thing I really watched from that film. Even I don't think I saw the actual movie. I just saw the end credit scene. So we were like, oh snap, So.
It was nice to see Woody Harrelson playing Mickey Knox from Natural Born Killers again, because that's pretty much what he was doing. His Cassidy was basically Mickey Knox.
Watch that
without
movie.
Mallory. So
yeah, that's actually refreshed my memory. I did watch that movie. That's how unmemorable it was.
Yes,
is that like?
I mean, I don't remember a lot of it. I remember mostly the Woody Harrelson parts, the fact that they put Shriek into it for some reason. It basically was a following of the first comic book that I ever actually collected all the issues of, which was Maximum Carnage, which was not good, but
I read that for the podcast. It was terrible.
Yeah, but was fun. So that is to say, while the characters, we will run into a storyline that very, very loosely follows what the Madam Web movie did, insofar as she collects 3 women and says, "You're all Spider Women, figure it out." But other than that, no, this has nothing to do with And in fact, the villain from that movie is a completely different character that shows up, much different in the Spider-Man timeline, and has nothing to do with Madam Web either. So, yeah. So, for anyone who has not listened to our podcast before, I am the presenting professor, Professor J. I will be taking Tim through 6 different comics spanning from 1980 to 2010. So we're going to jump around in about 30 years worth of Spider-Man history. We will go in chronological order. The comics that we will do, in case anyone wants to pause after this and read them real quick, are Amazing Spider-Man number 210 from 1980, Amazing Spider-Man number 239 from 1983, the Spider-Woman version 3 number 1 from July 1999, Alias number 17 from March 2003, Sensational Spider-Man number 39 from July 2007, and The Amazing Spider-Man 637 from July 2010. Now, originally in there, I also had Sensational Spider-Man number 26, but I grabbed the version 1 instead of the version 2, or volume 1 instead of volume 2, and it had absolutely nothing to do with Madam Web. So, yeah. I was like, this doesn't seem right. This is also out of chronological order.
I was reading it. I was like, well, that's okay. Where's the Madam Web part? Okay.
Spider-Man. Yeah.
I'm sure this has something to do with it. I got to the end and I was like, well, I'm sure this is leading to something else. It did not.
Yes. As I am presenting, Tim has the power, nay say the responsibility, to pull the emergency brake on the show at any point and ask the presenting professor, Professor L, any question, make any comment, fill in if you know some Spider-Man stuff that you want to kind of just be like, oh, this ties into X. By all means, do that. But if it is a question, it's going to go to Professor L, who then, it is her responsibility to answer the question. If she cannot, she will throw it back to me. If neither of us know the answer, we will put up our hands, wiggle our fingers, and go comic books, because sometimes that's all you can do.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we begin with Amazing Spider-Man 210 from 1980. We start in the basement storage room of the New York Globe, which is very specifically not the Daily Bugle. And the voice of Rupert Dockery is talking to a gang of masked individuals where he basically is setting up a kidnapping. And he's letting them know, hey, the people that will be in the room, I may actually need them at some point, so try not to kill that many people. He's not being like, don't kill. He's just being like, try not to.
It's
Yes. We then cut to Peter Parker and his girlfriend du jour, of which Peter Parker had a lot of in this time period. Her name is Debbie Whitman. She is telling him about a psychic that she goes to and shows him a little flyer that she has. And the flyer is, the psychic's name is Madam Web. Peter's kind of skeptical, and he's like, this Madam Web is probably a fraud. But by the way, I've got a meeting in 5 minutes over at the Globe. I got to go, and kind of leaves her. And it takes him 20 minutes to swing her across town. So he arrives 15 minutes late in true Peter Parker fashion, but he is stopped by the doorman in the entryway to the Globe. And the doorman says, sorry, the editorial room is the floor of the editorial room is basically closed. The elevator is turned off. You cannot get up there because you're late. So Peter goes back outside, changes into Spidey, and is like, I'm going to make it into that meeting. I'm not exactly sure what his plan is.
Right, exactly. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, he's going to bust through the window like this makes no.
Yeah. Don't mind me. But fortunately, he doesn't have to think about that, because in the editorial room, the man that we saw earlier conspiring, Dockery is introducing a woman who is the publisher of the globe, who has been secret up until now. Her name is KJ Clayton, which apparently she keeps an air of mystery. It doesn't appear in public, so this is the first time that she has. Just then, the armed masked men barge in. They go to kidnap KJ. Just before that happens, KJ does say that she is planning on turning over full editorial control of the Globe to Mr. Dockery. And that is why she has come out of like isolation or whatever to this board of people that are in the editorial room. Spidey sees that a kidnapping is occurring in the meeting he was trying to get into and does bust through the window. Takes out the bad guy except for two of them who are taking Clayton away. Dockery gets in Spidey's way accidentally and causes him just enough time that Spidey loses the kidnappers. They've taken a service elevator down. And there are no windows on this side of the building, so he can't why he doesn't go back in the editorial room and like swing or whatever. He just kind of gives up. But they have dropped one of Madam Web's flyers as a clue, I guess. 80s comics are weird.
Very
you gotta have
strange.
a lot of suspension of disbelief in the older comics. So Spidey goes to Madam Web's apartment and breaks and enters. She is waiting for him. She is sitting at a giant machine with wires coming out of it and like a web pattern behind her that's attached to a chair. She explains that it's a life support system that her now dead husband put together as her final gift. If she were without it for even a couple of minutes, she would die. She then explains to him that she is blind but can see the hidden chords of creation.
Can I just say, like, real quick, after Peter was like, his girlfriend was like, yeah, this is the psychic I go to or whatever. Like, the fact that she did not mention any of this, because you gotta understand, she's in this like mechanical web looking thing surrounded by a bunch of machines and computers. You think she might have mentioned like offhand, like, yeah, she's got this real wax setup in her house,
Right. Yes. Like, yeah, it is. And it's drawn in the 80s way of like what they thought computers that were futuristic would look like, which is like the size of a room. With random screens.
Room, basically. Yes,
with random screens built into them, but the screens aren't actually showing anything. Yeah. So Spidey gives her the flyer and was like, hey, I was just at a kidnapping and they dropped your flyer. And she's like, yes, I know the person who held this. Her name is Belinda Bell. She's a student of mine. She has psychic like abilities or should something. But Belinda's also an actress who is unknowingly assisted in a deceit, which the deceit is she was pretending to be this KJ Clayton person. So she was an actress like that had shown up to this meeting only to get kidnapped. Madam Web is absolutely, for a psychic, absolutely no help to tell Spidey where to find this kidnapped woman. She's in a place with a lot of trains. As it turns out, she is in a toy store, which has a lot of trains. She's being held until the thugs get word from their boss, basically, that whatever plan is going to go through has gone through. Dockery is the boss. He is talking to the real Clayton about how he's going to murder her and how an office full of people saw her give him control of the paper. Again, not the best plan.
The important part, too, to take away here is the reason why she was hired in the first place, which, again, is an extremely 80s motive. She hired this actress to pretend to be her because she was afraid and embarrassed because she's older and unattractive.
Yes. So KJ was the person that hired Belinda. Dockery saw that and was like, well, I'm going to use this to my advantage. So, yeah. Clayton, like this old lady, like, is like, ah, and runs. But, like, Dockery is like, yeah, well, I've shut down access to everything on this floor, even though it's your office building. And so he takes the time to call the kidnappers and tells them to kill Belinda. He's like, no loose ends, just kill the actress too. That's when Spidey shows up at the toy store. How he found them, never said.
Nope.
And stops the kidnappers. Belinda tells Spidey that Dockery is going to kill the real Clayton. So Spidey immediately goes to Clayton's office, that he somehow knows where it is, and finds her collapsed on the floor of her office, and the office is on fire. He rescues her, and then actually this is baller. He rescues her and goes down to street level and finds Dockery getting into his car, and Dockery's like, "You can't outrun my car." And Spidey's like, "You're right," and just flips the car over. Like, funny thing about cars, the wheels actually need to be touching the ground to work.
They're like, oh no.
Yep, and then he leaves Dockery to be arrested. So Peter's like, well, that was a job well done. He goes home, realizes that he stinks a lot. And like, oh no, that's later. I'm sorry. I'm messing up my times that Spidey goes to his apartment. He goes to his apartment, and basically he's sitting there. He's like, cool. So, I just arrested had arrested the editor of the newspaper that I'm working for. So I'm out of a job. My debts are piling up. I'm broke. This all sucks. Like, basically the 1980s Peter Parker panels that we all need to see of him just, my life sucks. His phone rings, and it's Madam Web, who's like, hello, Peter Parker, or should I say Spider-Man? Literally, like, that's how she starts conversations. She's like, yes, I'm psychic. I know that you're Spider-Man. And don't worry about your bills, because an opportunity is coming. And while they're on the phone, it cuts over to J. Jonah Jameson is trying to call Peter to offer him his job back at the Bugle, and is pissed because his line is busy. Which, again, this is a very funny 80s panel that people may not understand nowadays. What's a bussy signal? And that is the end of the first issue. We're then going to jump 3 years to Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man number 239. This is when Donald Menken, who is the assistant, or was the assistant to Norman Osborn. Norman Osborn is currently deceased, so he is the assistant to Harry Osborn. Is talking to police officers about a robbery that has happened at Osborn Manufacturing. He says nothing appears stolen, but this is the latest of several such burglaries in the last few weeks at different Osborn locations. Harry Osborn arrives, and Mencken tells him secretly and without the police that in every situation, in every robbery, a secret room was found, and stuff was taken out of those rooms, but they weren't like official inventory. And Harry says, yeah, that was probably good old dad. He had a lot of secrets.
I think one of the other secrets that we need clarification on is why Harry Osborn is drawn the way that he is in this first page. Because I want you to picture like a normal looking, like average looking dude, and like whatever you're picturing his forehead as, triple it. Then give him the most insane widow's peak you have ever seen on a human being, and then make his hair striped like a Mercedes Monet kind of do.
Yeah, like tiger stripes, except with the black still there, but instead of the orange, it's like red.
Right. I have no idea, and I mean, Josh, you're more a Spider-Man guy than me. Why the fuck does he look like that, or is it just a weird artist choice? Does he normally look like that?
Before I answer, Tim, you want to take this one?
Because he's started, by that point, since his father's dead, he started taking the stuff himself, and will soon be the secondary Green Goblin.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, good. Because I'm hypnotized by this panel. I want to put it up on the wall as like abstract art. It's the worst drawing I've ever seen.
There are 3 people in comics that have this hairstyle, and it's to specifically identify them as people in the Osborn family.
And then Amazo.
Yes.
Amazo has that head.
Yes.
God.
But yes, the tiger stripes Our Norman has them, Harry has them, and then Normie, who is Harry's son, eventually has them as well. They are something that goes through to comics today. I mean, not this bad.
This is so bad.
But it is the Osborn haircut. As for, yes, as they become closer to Green Goblin, their foreheads do get bigger.
Okay.
As if they were from this island Earth.
Like, I knew that he later took over the Green Goblin mantle. I guess I never realized how enormous everybody's head gets. That never really struck me until this panel, which I was just fascinated by. Sorry, continue.
No, it's all right. May your forehead grow like the mighty oak. So the next morning, we follow the shadowed figure, who is the person that has been committing the robberies, as he goes to his secret lab, but he goes and there's still newsstands. Remember those? And he stops and gives real coin money to a man smoking coin money.
Oh, coin money.
Metal money to a man smoking in one of the newsstands.
Where else would you smoke?
Right. And buys a paper and is reading about how he broke into a place the night before, goes to his secret lab, and he's thinking about all of the troves of Green Goblin weaponry and how they're better than he had hoped, and soon he will reign terror as the Hobgoblin. Yeah. Meanwhile,
so
Spidey
it takes 50 issues for them to figure out the Hobgoblin.
Yeah,
it's 230, and I started collecting comics around, I guess, 280 something, and Ned Leeds gets revealed, and up in there.
Yeah. No, the Hobgoblin is a thing for quite some time. Narrowly escaping Peter pulling off his mask to figure out who he is. There's also multiple Hobgoblins, which doesn't help. There's multiple of all bad guys in comics. But yes, all we see of the Hobgoblin is a mask that he has fashioned. And he's in the classic I could be from today or the 1920s, where all you see is a trench coat with the collar pulled up and a fedora. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Spidey is watching over Felicia Hardy, who has been shot by Dr. Octopus's goons in an ongoing story. While he's in the room, a police officer, Detective Jean DeWolf, comes in and basically is like, Spidey, go get some sleep. On his way out of the hospital, which he's just crawling on the ceiling of the hospital hallway.
And people are freaking out underneath him. Maybe don't do that, bro. You're in a hospital.
Right. But he realizes that he's in the same hospital that Madam Web is at. So he pops in to say hello. She's apparently lost her powers after a fight with Juggernaut. And in doing so, forgot all of the things that she knew when she was psychic, which includes that Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
Yeah. All right.
Yes. She's like, oh, I'm so old and frail. Could you turn on my radio for me? And Spidey's like, sure, and turns on the radio. And that's how he hears about the break-in at the Osborn warehouse. So he leaves through Madam Web's window. And she kind of smiles, and it leaves the question open on whether or not she does have her powers and whether or not she was just manipulating that situation to get Spidey to where he needs to go.
So let me just say here, this is an X-Men thing. Juggernaut is after her because she is against Black Tom.
Oh, I see.
And there's no explanation why her and Black Tom are at odds with one another. It's not in any X-Men book. And so that I just knew that it leads to Spider-Man fighting Juggernaut for the first time.
Also,
yeah, I didn't know that.
Much like Black Bolt, Black Tom is not black.
You can't just ask Black Tom when he's not black.
And he's one of the least effective villains in
He really
universe. And so the fact that they succeeded somewhat is crazy to me.
Literally, one of his only superpowers is friendship with the Juggernaut. He's kind of like the little dog in the old cartoons, like, yeah, Spike, yeah, let's get him.
We're friendly. We Spike. We.
Yes, that is Black Tom Cassidy.
I'm wondering. I guess he's not. They haven't ever had him on in the Muir Island X-Men 97, or not 97, but the old X-Men. I don't think
They
Black
did.
Tom was ever. Was he on that?
Yeah, in like one episode, like he shows up right at the beginning, and then never again.
Okay, because I know that there's some Cassidy history that they do, but
Yeah, the famously redone episode of "Get on my head, Charles, I'm the Juggernaut, bitch," like that whole thing. Black Tom is in that.
okay.
That's
Wow.
the only thing that I remember from that whole. There is an entire subplot that we are going to skip about a rival photographer named Lance and his girlfriend Amy, and how Lance is taking like nude pictures of her, but she keeps showing him her chest, and he's like, "No, you're back. These have to be artsy." And like she keeps making fun of him because Peter Parker's a better photographer, and making him mad, and so like she leaves. It's a weird subplot. Like the only thing that really comes out of this in this comic is that Spidey goes home, needs a shower, which again leads to another few weird panels because it's showing Peter Parker taking a shower, and Water is doing impossible things to make it so you can't see his butt. But other than that, he falls asleep and oversleeps, and he's only woken up because Amy is calling him out of the blue to try and hit on him, to try and make Lance jealous. But fortunately, Peter's like, "Nope, I have something else to do, bye," and hangs up on her. Based on the newspaper article, Spidey goes to one of the Green Goblin hideouts that he knows that Norman had, and that's where he finds the Green Goblin and the Hobgoblin, and they fight. Hobgoblin is really inexperienced, so Spidey is able to like take him out pretty quickly, but not before the Hobgoblin, like the glider goes wonky and hits the street and ruptures a gas line. Spidey realizes that these gas lines could burn down the neighborhood. So fixes it by just reaching in and squeezing the pipe so no gas can escape, because that's a fix. But the Hobgoblin is gone. From a rooftop, the Hobgoblin wonders how Green Goblin could have ever stood toe-to-toe with Spidey, and resolves to find out that secret. So we also know that Hobgoblin has not found the Goblin serum yet that Norman uses and that Harry is using right now. And that is the end of Amazing Spider-Man 239. We then jump to the late 90s, which is some whiplash.
Was it ever?
I was collecting comics during this time. In 99, there was a place in Cedar Rapids called M&M Comics. And man, this was like my heyday of collecting. I probably was picking up 20 bucks a month.
Every single character in this is drawn like they are right out of the Matrix.
Yes, it's very true. So Charlotte Witter, who is currently a villain who is calling herself Spider-Woman. So there is no one currently with the Spider-Woman moniker, though 3 women have carried it in the past. And Charlotte Witter has weird powers and decides to be a villain, goes to one of her former business partners, Randolph Conway, and kidnaps him after beating up 3 of his security guards. That is kind of the opening scene. She also like has green lips, looks very like Madame Hydra, and apparently has like "I touch you, I poison you" powers.
Like Piper.
Yes, a lot like that. She also has 6 like tarantula legs that can burst out of her back. So that's a thing. Meanwhile, at another location, Madam Web has brought together 3 women: Jessica Drew, Julia Carpenter, and Martha Franklin. Jessica being the first Spider-Woman, before at this point she has retired. Julia has psi powers and is the second Spider-Woman, but retired that when she had a daughter named Rachel. Martha is the newest. She isn't quite calling herself Spider-Woman yet. Her powers were given to her by Madam Web herself at something called The Gathering, which is a storyline that I collected all of for my sins.
It does not involve the Juggalos.
It does not.
Okay, so let me put a stop to this. So Marvel's, so Jessica, I guess, I'm trying to place this in time, but she'd be a Skrull now, right?
Oh,
Probably.
yeah.
Madam Web doesn't know?
I guess not.
Oh, damn. Damn.
Even though Madam Web has gotten an upgrade.
Yes. She shaved off at least 90 years off of her age in the art. So
Yes. Which they bring up. They're like, isn't Madam Web like a really old blind woman? And she's like, well, I'm blind, but I was given youth in The Gathering. So The Gathering was bringing together 5 relics, 5 MacGuffins into a room, doing a ritual. Norman Osborn was behind it. He was trying to gain like a ton of power. Everyone that was in the room, or 5 individuals at The Gathering, each that had an idol, got a different thing. Madam Web got youth. Martha Franklin got like her new spider abilities, which kind of also sort of includes some of the premonition stuff that Madam Web has. And Norman Osborn went insane. That was his gift. So yay. But Madam Web has brought the women together to find and capture the villain Spider-Woman for reasons of her own. Although she's basically is like, I've seen through the webs of time that the only person that can capture Spider-Woman are the 3 women who are hero Spider-Women. You following that? Randolph wakes up in a warehouse where Charlotte has stored many other old business partners, all of them old white men, in web cocoons hanging from the ceiling. And then she shows that she's holding them for the purposes of eating their essence as she drains one of them to like an Indiana Jones husk. He chose poorly. And that is the end of Spider-Woman number 1 in 1999. We're going to jump 4 years to Alias number 17. I was very, very glad to read this because Alias is one of my favorite comics of all time. Everybody really kind of knows the Purple Man stuff because of Jessica Jones, the show. But later she kind of starts to get more into weird stuff in the MCU. And specifically kind of into some of the Spider-Man stuff. A little bit of backstory that I just find fun. Jessica Jones went to Midtown High with Peter Parker. She had a huge crush on him. He never noticed her. And she got her powers around that time when her parents died. So she is kind of, since Alias started in 2001, by Brian Michael Bendis, and the character of Jessica Jones never existed before then. All of this stuff is retconned in, but retconned actually fairly well. So yeah, go read Alias. It's great.
It is.
But we start with Jessica Jones having sex with Scott Lang.
Which I did. I remember reading this, but I did not remember that part. And I was like, what in God's name?
What is happening?
Yeah.
My pure Scott.
Right. Like, I was just like, what the? Oh, right. That did happen. Oh, damn.
Yeah. And in fact, Jessica cannot finish and asks Scott to stop because she's too into her own head about her current investigation, which involves Maddie Franklin, Spider-Woman. And Scott's like, tell you what, man, I'm here for you. Like, we could stop the sex. Talk to me. That's what I'm here for. Because he's Scott fucking Lang. And even before Paul Rudd played him, he kind of...
I could hear it in Paul Rudd's voice, too. It's just so disturbing.
So Jessica tells him about her day, which started with her going and talking to J. Jonah Jameson about Maddie. So Maddie Franklin had shown up in Jessica's apartment and seemed to have been like strung out, like on drugs or something. But once Jessica was there, Maddie like kind of spewed some nonsense and left. In doing just a little bit of research, Jessica found out that Maddie Franklin was connected to J. Jonah Jameson, had lived in his house with his wife, was kind of almost like an adopted daughter of his. And so went to meet with JJJ and basically was like, hey, this is what happened. Do you have any information? JJJ assumes that it's a scam and that Jessica wants money from him because he's an old white dude dick, in true J. Jonah Jameson fashion, and basically is like, stop the car, she's getting out. And he's like, I don't know what your scam is, lady, but I will find out and I will destroy you. She's like, well, that didn't work. So Jessica goes back to her office and dives into more research and gets a shield file on Maddie somehow, and finds two names linked with Maddie Franklin. Those two names are Jessica Drew and Madam Webb. She has absolutely no idea who Madam Webb is, but Jessica Drew is an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. She's pretty, well known. She's at this point another investigator in, I believe, San Francisco.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so Jessica reaches out to her, just keeps getting voicemails. She leaves a voicemail. She's visited by Malcolm, who is very different in Alias than he was in the series. I actually really prefer the Malcolm in the series, and his whole subplot with like being used by the Purple Man and being on drugs and struggle with addiction. He was a great character. In this, he's a high school kid who's just like obsessed with Jessica Jones because he's obsessed with superheroes in general, and she lives in his building.
He's like an annoying little nerd.
Yeah. But he's also talking about how Captain America just revealed his secret identity, which I have big question marks and Leia in all caps. Was this a thing? I thought everybody always knew that Steve Rogers was Captain America.
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about here. I truly don't, because I was like, I'm sitting there racking my brain and like, I mean, admittedly, I have not read every single Captain America comic under the sun, but I have no fucking clue what he's referencing.
Right.
Like, at all. So I don't know if this is like some sort of thing that's like taking place off panel in this universe, or if there genuinely is a comic book story out there that I have not read involving Captain America saying, hey, everybody, I'm Steve Rogers. And then everybody else in America saying, yeah,
we knew that.
Know that.
Yeah. So, late 80s was when they replaced Captain America.
Yes. The first time.
But then this would have been right after Civil War, right? So Captain America's dead.
Right.
Civil War. This is right before Civil War. Civil War. Hold on.
Yeah, the first Civil War was somewhere around this time, but even
2016. This is way before that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wait, no.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. That's the movie. 2006.
Okay.
So this is a few years before Civil War.
Yeah, then everyone should know who he is then.
The only thing I can think of is, I'd have to check the timelines about like when Bucky Cap was in the comics and if that was ever revealed that he was Bucky versus Steve, but I don't think that took place either.
So, looking at the Wikipedia, just real quick, I could tell why you haven't read this. This is from the post 9/11 era Captain America comic.
Oh yeah, no thanks. That was a bad time.
Yeah. I do not want to go to there at all. So yeah, so we're gonna just chalk that up to we don't know. But Jessica sees an opportunity in this kid being here and is like, hey, you're a huge fanboy. What do you know about Spider-Woman? He's like, well, there's 3 of them, so which one do you mean? She's like, bingo. She's like, the youngest one, probably like around your age. She's like, yeah, she's about a year older than I am. But she hasn't been, like, she kind of seen here and there. And Jessica's like, okay, she might be on drugs. Do you know any drug dealers? And he's like, no. She's like, do you know any potheads? He's like, I know nothing but potheads. She's like, okay. And they make a deal. It's kind of adorable. They make a deal because Malcolm wants a part-time job at Alias Investigations. And so Jessica says if he can find information that leads her to be able to find Maddie Franklin or Spider-Woman is what she says. She doesn't give away her identity. She'll give him a job, which is adorable. Madam Webb calls Jessica on the phone and tells her to meet her at her building. Jessica's like, she's like, who are you? She's like, Madam Webb, I see the future. And like Jessica immediately is like, will I ever find true love?
I laughed so hard at that.
And yes. And Madam Web says, "This is my address. Please write my address down, for I see you will be lost inside my building for at least 9 minutes. I will see you at 7 o'clock." Jessica arrives at Madam Web's apartment at 7:12. True to what Madam Web said, she has been wandering around the building. She got lost. And Madam Web actually thanks her for being late because her powers have been kind of sketchy. And the fact that Jessica was late means that they're working correctly currently. I like that idea. I don't think it's done enough where they're like, I have to every once in a while test out my powers, so I just don't trust them all the time.
Sense to me.
Especially with precogs that deal in different futures. So yeah, Madam tells Jessica her powers haven't been very reliable, and she feels responsible for Maddie. Maddie got her powers at the gathering. Madam Web was there, so Madam Web has lost contact with her in both the physical and astral realms, which is never good. Madam Web basically has been looking into Maddie Franklin's possible futures and keeps seeing Jessica pop up in it. So she's using Jessica as kind of the through line so that she can find Maddie. And she's like, yeah, you're a really strong tie with her. I mean, you might kill her. She might kill you. And Jessica's like, I hate you. I hate all of you. I hate psychics. And then Madam Web reacts because she sees Jessica's past. Obviously, she can't control what she sees. But Jessica is pissed because it is somebody going into her mind, which is kind of a trigger for Jessica after Purple Man. Jessica says, fuck you a bunch of times and leaves. And that is and that is the end of her story as she is told that she's telling Scott Lang. So she rolls over without telling him anything further and goes to sleep. And that is the end of Alias. We are then going to move to Sensational Spider-Man number 39, which is from July 2007, which means that this is 4 years later. This is post-Civil War, which this will have a lot to do with that. This is post-Civil War and only months before One More Day. So Eddie Brock and the symbiote are having a conversation on a rooftop. The symbiote is kind of appearing to Eddie. It's amalgamous whether or not it's the symbiote coming out of his body and forming a shape, or if the symbiote is talking to him through his perceptions. I believe it's the second, because the bond between the symbiote and Eddie is so strong at this point. Eddie's also in the hospital. This is a point in history where we found out that there is a hormone that the symbiote really enjoys and that it looks for in potential hosts. Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you a question here.
Yes.
So Venom is still Eddie Brock.
Yes.
And is he a bad guy at this point?
Eddie does not want to be. The symbiote does.
Okay.
That's kind of the struggle that we're going to go through in this. Eddie has had cancer, specifically thyroid cancer. And the thyroid secretes whatever chemical it is that the symbiote really likes in its hosts, which is a whole other subline on why the symbiote leaves Eddie in the first place. So Eddie is undergoing cancer treatment in the hospital, the same hospital that Aunt May is being held in when she was shot and is in a coma just post-Civil War. So the symbiote's appearing to Eddie, convincing him to kill people, and he's like, you know what I have to have you do, but first we have to practice. You have to show me that you're willing to kill still, and it's almost time for the nurse to go on her rounds. So Eddie goes back into his room. This is where we find out that the symbiote, after Eddie, proves himself, the symbiote will want him to kill May Parker, for reasons. Peter is visiting May in the hospital, and then Madam Web, and then goes to Madam Web. the idea is that Peter is trying everything he possibly can to save his aunt. After she got shot, he feels responsible because the bullet was meant for him. He dodged it and it hit Aunt May. It was an assassin that Kingpin had sent once Peter Parker revealed that he was Spider-Man to the world during Civil War. Meanwhile, Eddie and the symbiote, Eddie kills his nurse. And the symbiote basically is like convincing him to kill for slight inconveniences. He's basically like, the nurse deserved it because she kept waking you up in the middle of the night to take your blood temperature, like your blood pressure and inject you with things and whatever, like doing the nurse's job. But Eddie is reluctant to kill Aunt May, someone he sees as a true innocent. So meanwhile, Peter and Mary Jane go to Madame Web, and with them is MJ's aunt, Aunt Anna, who is May's best friend. They use Madame Web's powers to put Peter in touch with May's spirit. I hadn't read this in a very long time. I have read Civil War for this show more recently, and I have read One More Day more recently than I've read this for this show. This pissed me fuck off because while Peter's talking to May's spirit, she's like, okay, well, I'm tired. I'm going to go die now. I'm old. I want to rest. And Peter's like, Peter's like, I can't let you die. The reason that you were shot is because of me. And she's like, yeah, but you should go on with your, I am an old woman. You should let me die. You should go with Mary Jane, have a life, have babies. Just go on with your life. She goes like through a metaphysical door and closes it and locks it. And Peter's on the other side, like banging on it. And then he like comes out of whatever seance they're having and is all.
So this pisses you off because you've just read One More Day again, and
I mean, not just
never should have made
the show.
Yes. Never should have made this deal.
Yes,
and
Mary, even in this, says she wants to die. She wants to go on. Like, don't bring me back, Peter. Especially
I'm excited to see your Uncle Ben again. Let me
right.
That.
So is it your hatred of One More? My hatred of One More Day is because the editorial staff wanted him to not be married.
Yes, right. Yeah. Because no one can sympathize or connect to a superhero that is married.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Hot young Spider-Man in your area are available for you. Call now. Is really what I look for in any comic book. Is like, can I fuck this guy? Is it plausible, or is he married? So
she says, how many Bucky comics do you have?
He's not married. Maybe
he's not
marrying him.
But so, I thought that. I mean, I've been reading Amazing Spider-Man for since David Michelinie wrote it, and started really with the love affair with those two characters, Mary Jane, and they deserve to be together, and all of this to break them up and make it a deal with the devil. It was just couldn't go with it,
No, it's fridging of the kind that sends your beloved aunt to hell,
right? Yeah. Okay. So, meanwhile, Eddie is standing over May's comatose body. Eddie has an issue with killing May, and the symbiote is basically egging him on to do it. Peter is apparently back in the hospital, and his spider sense kicks in, which doesn't make any sense because Venom should never trigger his spider sense. That's pretty well established. But okay. He goes to May's room to see Eddie. Eddie's standing like next to the window and is like, the symbiote is not out of me. It wanted me to kill May. I wouldn't do it. So I cut the symbiote out of myself. And he shows Peter like he's got just scalpel, like he's taking a scalpel and has cut his arms open. And then he just falls backwards out of the window. Like he kind of jumps out the window backwards. Peter runs to the window and saves him with his web shooters. And Eddie wakes up in his hospital bed. The symbiote is still appearing to him, basically being like, nope, you can't get rid of me that easy. And Eddie's like, yes, but at least now we know who's in charge. Like, I have shown you I'm willing to kill myself if you make me go to that level again. From what I remember, this is actually a pretty interesting story with Eddie. Venom is always an interesting character because the symbiote going to different people reacts differently, and its morality changes depending on the person it's with. Probably my favorite version of Venom in the last 20 years has been Flash Thompson, Agent Venom, where Flash Thompson had joined the Marines, had gone overseas, and been paralyzed, and the symbiote is the only way that he can continue to be a superhero or be a soldier. Really cool stories. Does a lot of space Marvel, which I'm not that into, but it's good. It takes the symbiote, puts it into a new story, and shoots it into space for space people to enjoy. So finally, we are going to go to Amazing Spider-Man 637, which is in July 2010. This is post everything, post Civil War, post New One More Day. Just it's kind of in the heyday of a lot of people leaving Spidey comics, and the writers really trying to bring them back. So they just kind of throw everything at the wall. So there are some kooky stories.
Who's the writer in this?
The writer is Kelly. If I can find the full name. I just see Kelly on the front.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, Joe Kelly, which I'm not that familiar with him. So this starts at a press conference being held by New York City Mayor J. Jonah Jameson. He is trying to ease the mind of New Yorkers about the swarm of animals that is loose in the streets of New York. While he's doing this, and while he is in the middle of his speech that is condemning animal rights activists as telling them to get out of the damn way so they can fix the problem.
I mean, to be fair, I can absolutely see this happening. It's there's panels in here, you gotta understand, it's not just squirrels and skunks and stuff. There's elk and lions and shit. And I can absolutely see some dipshit PETA person being we can't kill it. They're literally rabid animals.
This is before Harambe. So
yeah,
I mean
Harambe comes.
So while he's in the middle of this press conference, the whole press corps goes silent and is just staring at him. And he's like, "There's something behind me, isn't there?" As we see the scary stories to tell in the dark swarm of spiders are behind him.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the only thing we see with that, actually, in this comic, which is pretty funny. Peter Parker is he's at a funeral home. There is the dead body of Kane, which is the clone of his clone, in a coffin. There is a Post-it note left that says "Hunt Me." Peter is reliving a storyline called The Last Hunt, which is actually a really great Spider-Man storyline that we should put on the list. Where, it's nuts. It's one of the classic Spider-Man stories. When I first heard Kraven was going to be a movie, I was like, okay, well, they got to be doing The Last Hunt, but what the hell are they going to do, if there's no Spider-Man in this universe? So we have, we will not see Morbius in these, but we almost hit the trifecta of Sony mistake supervillains. But Peter Parker says that while Kraven died, his family is picking up where he left off, and they're killing spiders. Maddie Franklin has recently been killed. Madam Web was tortured. Julia Carpenter and Anya Corazon, which is someone we have never discussed on this show before, have all been attacked. Anya Corazon is also known as Araña, which is Spanish for spider. She is she's the Hispanic Spider-Woman. She's actually a really cool character. I like her. They don't quite use her enough, or in my opinion, well, recently, but I do like when she pops up.
Yeah, somebody I had heard of and never actually seen in a comic, even outside of the podcast. So I was interested in that for sure.
So let's cut to the movie if we can for just
Yes.
a moment. Those three women that she is watching, they're all the same age. So that sort of
Yeah.
messes up the three,
Timeline. Yeah.
the timeline. But who are they? Because I thought one of those was supposed to be Aranye.
I believe you are correct. Hold on. Let me check the synopsis of Madam Web. Oh, look, it says, "Are you sure you want to deal with this?" Yes, Isabella Merced did play Anya Corazon so the streetwise character, like the Hispanic one, was Anya in the Madam Web movie. She would have been age appropriate. The other two that are in Madam Web would not be, because Maddie Franklin would be probably in her late 20s for this storyline when she died, and Julia Carpenter's way older than that, probably 30s. Well, yeah, whatever amalgamous age Peter Parker is, Julia Carpenter probably is.
So in the flash forward scene, one of them had multiple legs, right?
Yes, you are making
But none
me
of those
remember
three
parts
have
of this
those
movie.
powers.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, it's
Correct.
confusing as all get out to me.
Yes. Yeah, it seems like the one with multiple arms that were coming out of the suit looked like the Iron Spider outfit from Civil War.
That's true.
So that was, which Peter Parker has had in the MCU. In the last movie, he has the last Stark suit that gives him the arms. So yeah, weird. Again, why Sony? Just why? But anyway, Peter is over the corpse of his clone's clone. Kane was killed, and basically left with a taunting note telling Peter to come hunt him. Peter at this point is wearing the black suit, which is never great for anyone. Because even though the black suit is not a symbiote, the black suit is a symbol that Peter wears that he is willing to go up to and including killing a bitch. Pretty much when he wears the black suit, he is telling people, I will at least put you in the hospital. I will Batman you. I
will not spend a lot of money on dry cleaning. This suit is black.
Right. Yes. So we find out that Kraven's family has resurrected him. They all have different Russian names. I'm going to refer to them as Kraven, Kraven's wife, Kraven's son, and Kraven's daughter, because I'm not. I'm just not.
All right.
Kraven has been resurrected, and he tells his family that they all must deal with the spider because there's going to be war. His wife is so glad that he's alive, goes over and tries to be like, comforting and he like bats her hand away and is like, "Do not touch me." She takes this not as that she has done anything wrong, but that he came back wrong, that his resurrection has somehow screwed up, when really what it is that he did not want Kane dead. Like, killing Kane to bring out Peter is not something that Kraven finds sportsmanlike. Chameleon has been assisting this family and is now like, "I'm out. You killed Kane. I've dealt with a pissed off Spider-Man before, and I do not want to deal with this Spider-Man after you murdered his brother." Kraven's kids basically won't let him. They're like, "Listen, the spider's coming, and he's gonna know that you're involved, so you might as well stand with us," because he's very, very angry. Meanwhile, Madam Web, Anya, and Julia Carpenter are being held hostage on the compound by a werewolf? ?
Yeah, unclear.
The werewolf is never explained why there is a werewolf.
It actually, you know what? It looks like it's got a lion head, less of a wolf, more of a lion. But
Yeah.
some kind of.
But I'm wondering if this is like Werewolf by Night, or
Ooh, very possibly. But yeah, I mean, it's never explained or referenced ever again. This is the only scene that it shows up in.
yeah.
J. Jonah Jameson's kid.
Yeah. Oh, Man Wolf. Yeah. who got his powers by being an astronaut and going to the moon. He became a werewolf.
Fucking goddamn, the phone ruins everything. I swear to God.
See our Facebook page for what my gift to Leia, which
You're
is
not liking the boat.
yeah, which is Scarlet Witch saying no more mutants and no more clones. Also, fuck the moon. Yeah, Craven's wife barges in and demands to know what happened to Craven. Apparently, in an earlier issue, they must have used Madam Web's like mystic abilities to bring him back from the dead. Madam Web says in whatever they did, her tie to the Great Web is broken. So, whatever happened to Craven, she can't see it, she can't fix it. So, and she warned her. And Craven's wife is like, cool, so you're useless, and stabs her. So she's bleeding out on the floor. And then all of the lights go off in the complex. Madam Web, who is on the floor and bleeding out, says, "This is the reaping. You have made the spider very, very angry." Which is kind of my favorite part of, like, not just comics, but also in movies where they're like, "Oh, you messed up now." Like, pretty much the first 45 minutes of John Wick before he kills a single person.
This made me curious if this was taking place during the spider totem days.
It might be.
That's what I
Spider totem.
That's immediately what I thought she meant by that, is like the spider totem is upset.
I want to say that this might be leading into the spider totem stuff.
Okay.
Because I think the spider totem stuff was post 2010.
Because it's not the first time somebody says something very similar to that. Like, during just this one issue where somebody kind of very obliquely is like, the spider is coming or something, like, or some other weird thing. So I was like, oh, maybe this is the spider totem either before or during, maybe it's spider totem era.
That makes sense for me.
Yeah.
Where that's at.
So Spider-Man arrives, takes out the chameleon real easy by like basically just pulling him out a third-story window, and then goes into this place to look for the hostages, runs into the werewolf, beats the crap out of the werewolf. Craven's kids show up and go to shoot Spider-Man. Spider-Man dodges, and they hit the werewolf instead, killing the werewolf, ? Craven's kids are like, he's not supposed to be that fast. And that's when, like, Spider-Man shows up behind him and just starts cleaning house with these kids. Madam Web is bleeding on the floor, saying webs, threads, unraveling. He can fix it. He can fix it. Craven's wife is just screaming at them, saying, shut up. Craven shows up. She's like, where's my family? And Craven's basically like, you are a simpering nothing. Like, how did you run the family in my absence? She's like, where are the children? He's like, lost, dead? I don't know.
Who cares?
Yeah. And she's like, but I brought you back. And he's like, brought me back to what? She's like, to life. And he's like, you call this life? This is hell. And like, backhands her. And she's like, basically, like, we did all this so you could restore the family to greatness. And he's like, my family should not have fallen from greatness without me. I should not have to be here in order for you to be great. And that's why I hate you. It has nothing. Yeah, it has nothing to do with like anything with the ritual. The ritual worked just fine, but you were too weak to protect the family. And she's like, I'll show you how weak, and like turns around and Spider-Man's there. And Craven is not. So Spider-Man basically says talking to yourself is the first sign of insanity. And he's like, for you, maybe sign 72. But this is implying that Craven is actually not alive. It's just all in her head. And then Spider-Man like unties the hostages, says, to the girls, take care of Madam Web. I'm going to go and kill Sasha Kravinoff. I'm basically going to go kill Craven's wife. Madam Web from the floor tells Anya that she needs to go and stop Spidey from killing Craven's wife. Anya runs off to do that. and Madam Web takes off like her blindfold thingy and is not blind. Talks to Julia about how beautiful of a girl she is, and Julia's like, "But you're blind." She's like, "I was, but I'm not. There isn't time for explanations. I'm going to go. I'm going to go now. But before I go, I commit my final sin for the good of the web." And she bestows her powers onto Julia Carpenter, saying, "Someone has to see someone with fresh eyes." Meanwhile, Spider-Man is like straight up hunting Kraven's wife. He claws her eyes at one point.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
Yeah, like and like basically saying, she's like, "Wait," and he's like, "You didn't wait. Did you wait for Cassandra? Did you wait for Kane or for Maddie? Like you're gonna feel what it's like to be wounded and hunted." And that's when her daughter shows up and goes to attack. Arya shows up and basically is trying to talk sense into Peter. And Peter's like, "Get out of here." She's like, "Are you really going to kill that lady?" And he doesn't respond. She's like, "Then I'm not going anywhere." And that is when Kraven does show up. He's not in his wife's mind. He actually is alive. Big fight, which we don't get into in this show, but Arya and Aranya and Kraven's daughter fight. Kraven and Spider-Man fight. Kraven is able to nick Spider-Man with a poison blade. Kraven's wife kind of double teams Arya and like grabs her from behind. Arya headbutts her in her like eye sockets that don't have eyes in them right now because Peter just ripped them out. So yeah, huge fight. Kraven explains that that it's not poison on his blade, it's his blood. And that is what is affecting Spider-Man. They fight and basically keep doing like one-ups of like, "Haha, I dislocated your shoulder. Haha, I broke your sternum." Like
Right.
weird, yeah. Kraven's daughter is talking about like, "You're in the jungle," to which Arya's like, "This is the Bronx. This is the real jungle."
You in the jungle, baby. You're gonna die.
Spider-Man is standing above Kraven with his spear, about to drive it into him and kill him. Everyone stops and is like, "No, don't." And that's when Julia shows up as the new Madam Web, and shows Peter what will happen if he gives in to killing. What future awaits him, and that he will never heal. He'll never come back from it, basically. That he must no mercy. Peter makes the decision to spare Kraven, to which Kraven is pissed because he had set this whole thing up. It was going to be a masterpiece. He was going to have Spider-Man kill him and create the best hunter. If he could not be the best hunter, he would take Spider-Man and make Spider-Man the best hunter. And once Spider-Man refused, he was all sorts of pissed. There's a giant like thump, and all of the Kravens disappear. They like ninja vanish. And we go back to where the streets of New York, where the wild rampage, like all the animals just kind of laid down and went to sleep.
Take a snooze.
Yep. Mayor Jameson applauded his personal efforts, basically saying, "I saved the city." But he does say it doesn't take Reed Richards to see that Spider-Man was part of this terror attack on the city, and he will be brought to justice. Which he gives that statement from his room at the hospital where he was treated for multiple spider bites, which is why he blames Spider-Man. And yeah, we end at Spider-Man and Aranya are in costume at Kane's gravesite in the cemetery with Julia Carpenter, who basically,
which is hilarious because it's marked as it's noted that it's a potter's field, but
Yeah.
It's got a headstone, which is not a thing. Either they're unmarked graves in a potter's field or it's a cemetery. It's not both things. Sorry.
talk a little. That's all right. They talk a little bit about Julia becoming the new Madam Web, and Madam Web's like, "Oh yeah, you'll see me. I'll be around. I'm getting to know these powers." And like, she puts up her hands and has like webs, like kind of like Doctor Strange's light show that always comes out when he's doing magic, but in web form, and she like fades out of view.
It like disappears.
Which leads probably one of my favorite Peter Parker lines. He says, "I liked it when she was just hot. Hot and mysterious is going to be trouble." And then elsewhere, the Craven family, Craven has taken them to the Savage Land to basically go on a hunting trip to restore their honor. They must be hardened. His wife starts screaming at him saying, "No, I'm in charge of this family, not you." He just reaches over and snaps her neck and is like, "All right, kids, let's go hunting."
I think this is about where he went after Wolverine.
Must be. Yeah.
Because Wolverine's the best there is. So in order to be the best there is, you have to take out Wolverine.
Right. Absolutely. And that is where that comic ends. So this is the best I could do on the question of who is Madam Web, or what is Madam Web, or why is Madam Web. This is the shot that I'm taking. So do you feel like you understand Madam Web more?
I do. I just got some questions, I guess. Let me try to... they turned all of New York into spider things, right?
Oh, Spider Island.
Spider Island.
Yeah, that's what everybody...
in that at all?
I don't think so. I don't remember her in Spider Island. But it has honestly been a while since I read Spider Island. Spider Island was the next year, so it was 2011.
Oh wow!
It doesn't look like it.
So I know that his clones and all they get the Spider Killer, and I mean I think that's what they more or less made the villain off of for the movie.
Yes.
But in the comics, I mean I don't think he went after her at all. I think he just focused on going from dimension to dimension, killing Spider-Man.
Right. Yes, and
so he's
on them. Yeah. Oh, Julia is involved in Spider Island insofar as she hangs out with Shang-Chi during all of it.
Oh. Okay.
Thanks for helping out.
Yeah, because I was like, this is above my pay grade. I honestly don't know.
I never heard of you.
And so then the whole edge of Spider-Verse and then, I mean, it seems to me that you have this enigmatic person to guide spider heroes.
Right.
That hasn't really done much for Spidey, but hasn't really done anything for May, hasn't really done anything for Gwen, the Spider-Gwen, hasn't really done anything for... you're just helping Spider-Women, is that it?
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong.
Let's see. Oh yeah, no, she's in a coma through all of Spider-Verse.
Wow.
She basically sees that Spider-Man's going to die, and that is just before Doc Ock switches minds with him. That overloads her and she falls into a coma. So she's in a coma all the way through Superior Spider-Man, well through Spider-Verse. And afterwards she wakes up and says her connection with the web of life and destiny has been lost.
What?
And so there is no Madam Web.
I thought that there was somebody with powers to see the future that was dealing with Miles in
Civil War II, or no, not Civil War II, like right before Civil War II, right?
Yeah, I didn't really read Miles Morales Spider-Man until recently. So
God, I should know this too, because I really loved that plot line, and I can't remember who it was who gave Miles like the prophecy.
Oh, that was the oh God, you're right.
Yeah.
I should know it too because we went over it on this show.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, the prophecy that he'll kill Captain America.
Yeah.
It was the Inhuman from Civil War II.
Oh, the moon lady.
Yes.
Moon lady.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
I knew it was gonna have something to do with moon. Son of a bitch.
You belong to the moon now. So apparently, just before the Clones Conspiracy, which is newer, the original Madam Web is cloned back by the Jackal. Yep. So, and she's around now. So Cassandra is back now. Oh no, she died again. Never mind. She was just back for that one. So there is no Madam Web right now. Comic books.
Yeah.
I would hate to try to figure out how the Jackal is back again, but
I'm sure he had a cloning facility somewhere for himself. Ben Riley's back, so
I'm going to choose to blame Mr. Sinister. That's who I'm choosing to blame.
No, because the Jackal is Spider-Man's Mr. Sinister. He does all the cloning stuff, but he is not nearly as glam or fabulous as Mr. Sinister.
Well, then never mind.
Yeah. But yes, Ben Riley is bad right now.
This really reinforced for me that in terms of spider-based superheroes, I actually know way less about Spider-Man than I thought I did.
They keep trying to go back to the well of the clones of Spider-Man, being like, I can fix it. It's still good. Like, no, and it just never is. No. Yeah. Well, Tim, how did we do, all in all?
You know, I am more knowledgeable, and with that much knowledge, I now
have greater responsibility.
No, I don't think there's a greater responsibility. I think that I needed that drink.
Yep.
Yeah, it's messed up, and why you would pick that character for a movie? You could have just gone straight into making Spider-Woman.
Sure.
Yes,
you could have done it in the started her off as Jessica Drew, as detective for hire, but she's actually Spider-Woman.
Or you want to tie it back into like at least having to do with like Peter Parker, go the Ultimate route, because in the Ultimate route they had their own clone saga that was done much better, but Jessica Drew was a female clone of Peter Parker, powers and all. Do that,
right?
And then build Sony's entire Spider franchise off of Jessica Drew with all of Peter Parker's stories.
I don't know what's wrong with Peter, because you make a clone of him and it creates a whole bunch of problems.
I mean, you create a clone of anybody, really, because like there are no like even the Gwen Stacy clones were madness, and yeah.
Well, that's just that guy creating clones, because apparently the High Evolutionary can do it and do it pretty well. The whole Wolverine's got what?
I was about to say
now.
Well, Laura. Okay. So Laura is a clone of Wolverine, and then Laura herself had like a whole squadron of clones.
Her little sister is a clone of her,
of which there's only one left, and that's Honey Badger, I think.
Yeah,
which is probably my favorite person that ever got a superhero name, because they were like, "Well, you need a superhero name." She's like, "Well, I give 0 fucks, so I'm Honey Badger."
Which I know in the X-Men thing that she died, and they actually resurrected a clone.
Yes.
So I don't even know if she's a clone anymore.
I mean, would you consider everyone that uses the protocols, the mutant protocols, wouldn't they all be clones?
I don't know.
That's if you rebuild the ship of Thebius, is it just a clone ship?
Yeah.
Well,
are there any real X-Men now?
That's a good question. I don't think so.
Yes, no, none of them are real.
Oh, Krakoa era, why did you do all this to us? Well, Tim, thank you so much for joining us. It has been fantastic to have you on. I do like the I know everything. Like, I know a lot of things in this universe, but this is like my blind spot. So you added a lot to our knowledge of Spider-Man too, which is great. Or reminded me of stuff that I've read years ago that I totally forgot about. Please, everyone, join us next week for our penultimate episode of Season 5. We will be doing Ultimatum, what was supposed to be the end of the Ultimate Universe, and then it kept limping along for another, 4 or 5 years.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I mean, and then the new one is coming out.
Yes.
Put out a new
Ultimate Universe. Yeah. Yeah.
No, no.
Of which the only one that I've liked is Spider-Man. Like none of the other ones that they've done have caught me because it has a good hook for Spider-Man at least. So just real quick, the idea
armor.
Yeah. The idea of this Ultimate Universe is like after Secret Wars, when Reed Richards and the rest of the Fantastic Four like fucked off to the multiverse to create worlds. One of the worlds that was created, the Maker, who's the evil version of Reed from the Ultimate Universe, kept superheroes from ever becoming. So like knew how all superheroes are going to get their powers and manipulated it so they never did. So Peter never got bit by the spider, and Luke Cage never underwent like the prison program, like all of that stuff. Once real Reed or 616 Reed found out about the Maker's world, he went. Tony Stark actually was this one. Went and fixed it, but obviously couldn't go back in time. So fixed it nowadays. So now middle-aged Peter Parker with 2 teenage kids is who got his powers. It is a very fresh take on Spider-Man. I enjoy it a lot. He's married to Mary Jane. We get to have him having a family because like his daughter like goes and gets powers. It's cute. It's fun. It's light. It is not the early 2000s Ultimate. I will warn you, if you are a fan of nu metal, we've already recorded this episode of Ultimatum, and there is a lot of references to how this is like the nu metal of comic books. Everything has to be edgy and has screamo in it for no reason. It's bad. It's rough.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I remember when the Ultimates came out back then, and how I know that the Ultimates are about to come out in the new universe, and I'm still burned. I can't touch that.
Understandable.
Yeah. Well, everything was supposed to be edgy, and Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, like there was no subtext that they were having sex. They were straight up having sex while still being siblings. And yeah, the Ultimate Universe, man. We got miles out of it. And we could ditch the rest. But yeah, tune in next week for that shit show. But until then, take it away, Vandello.
A little wreck conversation, some deep reactions, please. All this comics narration ain't me. A little more talk, a lot less read. A little fight, baby, is what I need. Close the trade, open up your brains. Explain it to me. Explain it to me, baby. Explain it to me. Explain it to me, baby. Explain it to me. Vandello 2021.